Jurassic period, also known as the Jura, is perhaps one of the most fascinating eras. After watching the famous movie Jurassic Park, an average person might think the Earth was just full of dinosaurs, but the reality isn't quite that simple. Although the Jurassic is often called the Age of Reptiles, it is first and foremost important to establish that the Jurassic is the second phase of the Mesozoic Era, which is very long and complex. It began 201.1 million years ago and lasted about 56 million years. The name Jura comes from the Jura Mountains in Switzerland and France, where the first fossils were discovered and studied. The Jurassic is divided into three stages. The first stage, known as the Lower Jurassic, lasted from 201.3 to 174 million years ago. At that time, life was recovering from the Jura extinction event, which wiped out about half of the animal species on Earth. However, the warm and humid climate of the Jurassic helped life rebound quickly. The warm oceans and seas were filled with species of fish, amphibians, and reptiles. On land, reptiles, including dinosaurs, quickly took over the ecosystems that had been vacated due to the previous extinction. During the course of evolution, some reptiles developed wings and took to the skies. The early Jurassic marked the golden age of reptiles, with hundreds of dinosaur species appearing on the planet. They inhabited all continents, including Antarctica. Some species reached incredible sizes and proportions, while others evolved into strange and fearsome forms. The prehistoric reptiles that lived 200 million years ago remain a great mystery for humanity. Dinosaurs at the beginning of the Jurassic are one of the most fascinating aspects of Earth's distant past. At that time, the supercontinent Pangaea began to break apart into separate landmasses. The eastern seas gradually filled the gaps, and the continents slowly took on shapes similar to those we see today. The tectonic plates continued to drift apart, separating Africa and Australia, while the distance between Africa and the Americas also widened. In Eurasia, lowland areas like Germany, England, Paris, and Spain were formed, along with Siberia. The Arctic Ocean also encroached upon the northern coast of Laurasia. In North America, the Rocky Mountains and the Andes began to form. The process of tectonic plate separation was accompanied by intense volcanic activity, releasing large amounts of CO2 into the atmosphere and increasing the greenhouse effect. The climate during the Jurassic was about 5 to 10 degrees warmer than today, with CO2 concentrations in the atmosphere 4 times higher than current levels. Rainfall during this period was also more frequent and intense compared to the late Triassic. On land, this era experienced a tropical and humid subtropical climate. Vast areas were covered with lush vegetation, predominantly forests of ferns and large trees. The dominant component of the plant life was seed ferns and non-flowering woody plants. Unlike animals, plants are luckier because there is no clear evidence of the extinction of plant life during the transition from the Triassic to the Jurassic period. Thanks to the high temperatures and abundant humidity, trees in the forest grow tall and strong. The conifer is a common type of tree in tropical and subtropical regions. With its golden age beginning in the Jurassic and Cretaceous periods, they reached their peak diversity in the early Jurassic period. 6, also known as the cypress, looks so much like a palm tree that the famous botanist Carl Linnaeus mistakenly classified it with palm trees. Additionally, the ginkgo tree grows in temperate climates. The leaves of this tree have a fan shape, which is different from other tree species. However, only one species of ginkgo still exists today, which is Ginkgo biloba. Along with sequoia and ginkgo, prehistoric conifer species also thrived. These trees resemble modern pines, cedars, and firs. By the end of the Triassic and the beginning of the Jurassic, they changed rapidly and became more diverse in the East Asian region. Pseudotsuga, an extinct conifer species, dominated, differing from most modern conifers. Like common conifers, they shed their leaves seasonally. The rich vegetation facilitated a boom in animal life, particularly insects. There are no signs of extinction for insects during the transitional phase from the Chas period to the Jurassic period. Therefore, the grassy forests and riverbanks of the Jurassic period were teeming with insects. Imagine predatory dragonflies hovering over the water in search of prey. Plant-eating beetles gathered in the thickets, while spiders ambushed their prey. It was also around this time that the first butterflies appeared. However, they weren't as beautiful and vibrant as today's butterflies. Additionally, there were some creatures that looked like modern butterflies, but they were not actually butterflies. This can be explained by a remarkable evolutionary phenomenon known as convergent evolution. The creatures fluttering in the Jurassic forest resembled butterflies and even pollinated plants like butterflies, but they actually belonged to a different group of insects more closely related to beetles. At that time, flowers had barely appeared. There were only small flowers that had not adapted to insects. However, gymnosperms like conifers and cycads with flower-like cones attracted the pseudo-butterflies of the Jurassic. Convergent evolution is a phenomenon where distantly related species evolve in similar ways to adapt to similar living conditions. That's why unrelated species can look identical even if they live in different areas. A textbook example of convergent evolution is the genus Pteris in Mangask. From a common ancestor, Pteris evolved into many different types that look a lot like shrews, hedgehogs, or otters. If you put a hedgehog and a shrew side by side, it would be very hard to find 10 differences. However, in reality, Pteris is more closely related to elephants than to hedgehogs. Similarly, the Jurassic butterflies had wide wings, scales, and a camouflage that looked just like real butterflies, but they belonged to a completely different species. Such examples show that evolution always seeks the shortest and most optimal path. This also means that if one day we find a distant planet with Earth-like conditions, we might encounter strange creatures that look very familiar. During that period, amphibians gradually gave way to reptiles. Many species went extinct, leaving only the salamander, primitive frogs, and a legless worm-like species called celine. Among the large amphibian species, there are still a few that can grow up to 3 meters in length. The record belongs to a fossil found on the African continent, estimated to be about 7 meters long. Throughout history, Parian souse was the only giant amphibian species, but they appeared and went extinct during the Permian period. Piarp has a flattened body and a paddle-shaped head. Their mouths have sharp teeth that help predators seize their prey immediately. Although they thrived in the early Jurassic, their numbers gradually declined. Meanwhile, reptiles rapidly developed before dinosaurs branched off into a separate group. The diversity of reptiles quickly increased in both number and species, allowing them to dominate in water, on land, and even in the air. Real monsters lived in the warm tropical seas of the Jurassic period. They looked terrifying, yet at the same time, they were very marvelous and impressive in their own way. After surviving the great mass extinctions at the end of the Chaz period, they gradually recovered and thrived. One of the most notable species is Osaurus, also known as the fish lizard. There are many different species of Osaurus. On average, they are about 2 to 4 meters long, but due to favorable environments, some species grew to gigantic sizes. The largest known species is Sonosaurus, measuring up to 15 meters in length. The absolute champion in this group is Psittacosaurus, with a length of up to 21 meters. Some species of Inosa have a very strange appearance. They have a body similar to a shark, but a head like an Indian crocodile with a long and narrow snout. They can be seen as a bizarre joke of, nature, much like a platypus. One remarkable feature of Inosaurus is their very large eyes protected by a bony ring. This helps them hunt at night and dive to great depths, with eye diameters reaching up to 25 centimeters. The Thotosaurus can be seen at depths of 1,600 meters, while humans can only see complete darkness at depths of 600 meters. According to paleontologists, at depths of 800 to 950 meters, light intensity is only 1% of what it is at midday on the surface. While reptiles dominated the land and oceans, the flying lizard Stegosaurus appeared during the Triassic and became common in the early Jurassic. Although some species went extinct, the Ramblechura flying lizard with a long tail continued to thrive. They mainly fed on fish and small land reptiles. During the R period, they diversified more than ever before. Prehistoric turtles generally resembled modern turtles, but the Tho group on land, of course, included dinosaurs. Paleontologists have identified over 900 genera and more than 1,000 species of non-avian dinosaurs by the early Jurassic. Dinosaurs quickly dominated ecosystems after the extinction event. There's a common misconception that all dinosaurs were gigantic, but in reality, they came in all sizes. Some species were as small as chickens, while others grew into massive monsters. Most dinosaurs were carnivorous, hunting for survival, while some were herbivores, moving slowly, trampling the ground, and grazing on vegetation. Around 82.7 to 74.1 million years ago, a particular herbivorous dinosaur lived in what is now Zimbabwe, called Volcanodon. This species had the typical body structure of the sauropod family with strong limbs, a long neck, and a long tail. This is one of the first dinosaur species discovered in Zimbabwe. Its Latin name is Volcanodon, meaning tooth of the volcano, due to its fossils being found in a sandstone layer sandwiched between two ancient lava flows. At the time Volcanodon lived, the Pepper Arrows Formation was a hot sandy desert, not the most conducive environment for life. However, there were still oases, vegetation, some rivers, and rare bodies of water. Volcanodon was about 6.5 meters long, stood 2.5 meters tall, and weighed 2.5 tons. Some researchers believe it could have been up to 11 meters long and weighed as much as 3.5 tons. Although it was a herbivorous dinosaur, Volcanodon couldn't escape being preyed upon by contemporary predatory reptiles. Evidence of it being hunted appeared as soon as the first fossil of this species was discovered. Right after the first fossil of this species was found, paleontologist Michael R. from South Africa discovered a tooth near Volcanodon's pelvic area, but the skull and neck were missing. Paleontologist Michael R. from South Africa discovered a tooth near Volcanodon's pelvic area, but the skull and neck were missing. The shape of these teeth resembled those of predatory animals. This suggests that the Volcanodon may have writhed in pain when killed, causing its head to fall off near the pelvic area. This phenomenon has also been observed in other dinosaur fossils. It's because of these strange teeth that this herbivorous dinosaur was named after the teeth of its own killer. While Africa had the Vodal, in North America, the Dilophosaurus was the dominant predator. This species lived about 199 to 198 million years ago in Arizona, United States. This is a formidable killer with high speed and superior agility, specializing in hunting small herbivorous dinosaurs. The name Dilophosaurus comes from Greek, meaning two crests, based on the two flat bony crests on its skull. Scientists believe these crests served a decorative function and may have played an important role in attracting mates. Similar to the colors of the chicken monitor lizard or the modern bit lizard, Dilophosaurus reached lengths of up to 7 meters, stood about 2 meters tall, and weighed around 400 kilograms. An impressive figure for a carnivore from the early Jurassic. In fact, it was the largest predator of that time, leading some scientists to refer to it as the T-Rex of the early Jurassic. Although very dangerous, the Dilophosaurus couldn't easily take down armored dinosaurs like Celodosaurus or Ceratosaurus, unless hunting in pairs or in packs for smaller prey. Neopsaurus was a truly terrifying predator. Its long, narrow jaws allowed it to quickly snatch up prey with speed and high agility. It could capture even small, agile dinosaurs like Scosaurus. Analysis of Dilophosaurus jaw fossils shows that when large prey was unavailable, it could also eat fish and other aquatic creatures. Analysis of dupe jaw fossils shows that when large prey was unavailable, it could also eat fish and other aquatic creatures, sometimes even scavenging for sustenance. Kopit is a small, bipedal carnivorous dinosaur that lived on the ground. They had bodies up to 3 meters long, with a compact and lightweight build thanks to their hollow bone structure. This is one of the earliest known dinosaur species in history. The name Kopit comes from their extremely lightweight bone characteristics due to their hollow limb bones. They lived during the late Triassic and early Jurassic, around 228 to 200 million years ago. According to some estimates, 28.5 to 19.8 million years ago. This carnivorous species was common in North America, particularly in the New Mexico area, as well as in South Africa and Zimbabwe. Compared to the large Dilophosaurus of the same era, Kopit looks much smaller. They reached a maximum length of 3 meters, stood about 1 meter tall, and weighed around 30 kilograms. The teeth of Kopit feature the typical characteristics of carnivorous dinosaurs. Thin, backward curving teeth that are sharp with small grooves on both the front and back edges. Although they are predators, Kopit's hunting strategy differs from that of larger dinosaurs in the Jurassic. Instead of hunting alone, they tend to hunt in packs. During the late Triassic and early Jurassic, the valleys of North America were primarily deserts, but some green oases still existed on the mountain plateaus and hills. It is in these areas that the Kopits hunt by chasing and surrounding their prey. Scientists hypothesize that they may use special sounds to communicate while hunting, creating a primitive hunting strategy. Coppets can work together to take down larger herbivorous dinosaurs. However, their main diet consists of smaller animals, reptiles, and lizards. Fossils of coppets are often found alongside small animal remains, proving that they primarily prey on animals smaller than themselves. An interesting event in the history of coppet research is that for a long time, they were believed to be cannibalistic. This originated from fossils found at God Range, New Mexico, where scientists discovered the remains of juvenile coppets in the stomach of an adult. However, by the early 2000s, this hypothesis was dismissed. Later studies showed that the small skeleton actually belonged to a different species, the Hyosaurus, a small reptile from the same period. This means that coppets did not prey on their own kind as once thought, but only hunted other small reptiles for survival. God Range is not only where many coppet fossils were discovered, but also one of the richest areas for prehistoric dinosaur and crocodile fossils. This site has a massive graveyard containing numerous coppet skeletons, leading scientists to wonder what happened here. Although the exact cause is still unclear, some hypotheses suggest that a natural disaster like a flood or drought may have wiped out the entire coppet herd, burying their remains together over time. Another small but notable dinosaur from the early Jurassic period is the Lutusaurus. The name of this species is related to the country Lutu in Africa, where its first fossils were discovered. Lutusaurus lived about 199 to 198 million years ago and is one of the smallest dinosaurs of that time. Lutusaurus could reach a body length of up to 2 meters, which is the maximum estimate. Its height has various estimates ranging from 40 centimeters to over 1 meter. Its weight also varies widely from 3 to 10 kilograms. This is quite normal since we are not talking about a specific species, but the entire genus Lotosaurus. Moving on 2 long and strong legs allows it to reach astonishingly high speeds. The small but well-developed 5-fingered forelimbs of Lutusaurus appear from the outside like a miniature version of a human hand. Its 5th digit, the pinky, is underdeveloped. Thanks to these forelimbs, Lotosaurus can grasp and hold on to the types of plants it eats. The diamond-shaped jaw of Lotosaurus is lined with teeth. At the front, the upper jaw has 12 sharp teeth resembling arrowheads. This lightweight and sharp structure is not suitable for crushing hard food, but is ideal for cutting through soft stems or leaves. The body of Lotosaurus is long and lightweight, resembling its ancestor Esthosaurus, an ancient reptile that had just begun to walk on 2 legs in a primitive way. Its long and slender tail helps it maintain balance while moving quickly. Overall, the short skull and elongated body make the Lotosaurus look like a 2-legged lizard running on the ground, something that some modern reptiles can still do. The Lotosaurus is a very agile animal. At the first sign of danger, it immediately runs away. But does it have any enemies? Of course, it does, at least the predator Coppus. When it comes to Coppus's typical prey, Lotosaurus fits perfectly on that list. Coppus has long, agile legs, making it easy to catch up with Lotosaurus. Lotosaurus has no defensive weapons, no sharp claws, no protective armor, and no fangs. Another small but very interesting dinosaur is Linus. This species has many strange characteristics that leave paleontologists quite puzzled. The name Linus comes from Latin, meaning wolf face, stemming from the sharp fangs found in its jaw fossil. However, the rest of its teeth suggest it was a herbivore. Linus lived in the early Jurassic period, about 199 to 196.5 million years ago, in what is now South Africa. It measured up to 1.2 meters long, about 50 centimeters tall, and weighed up to 10 kilograms. It moved on 2 legs like its close relative Heterodontosaurus. Strong and lightweight legs, along with a long tail for balance. Its well-developed forelimbs may have been used to grasp plants while eating. The skull of Linus is shaped like a teardrop. At the front, it has a hard beak similar to that of a bird. Just behind the beak, it has large, sharp fangs. Because of these fangs, scientists initially thought Linus was a descendant of the mammal-like reptile group Saurona. But upon closer analysis, they realized that Linus was an omnivorous dinosaur. It ate both plants and small animals. Linus's diet included thin stems, ferns, and horsetail grass. Hard foods like twigs and tree bark could be consumed along with insects or small animals when necessary. Despite having sharp fangs, Linus wasn't a formidable predator. When attacked, it could bite back, but only speed and camouflage helped it escape from enemies. Many people often think that all dinosaurs were gigantic, but that's not the case. Many species were only the size of a chicken or a lizard. For example, Allosaurus is a small dinosaur about the size of a turkey. However, it took over 100 million years of evolution for giant herbivorous dinosaurs to appear. If we are familiar with the huge carnivore D, Saurus, to see the giant herbivorous species, we must travel to the continent of Laurasia. In what is now China, in Yunnan province during the early Jurassic period, about 203 to 168.3 million years ago, there was a gigantic herbivorous dinosaur named after this location, Xanosaurus. It measured up to 13 meters long, about 4.3 meters tall, and weighed up to 3 tons, much smaller than the giants of later periods, which weighed dozens of tons. But in the early Jurassic, Jan Dinosaurus was considered a large dinosaur. The Jan Dinosaurus mainly moved on 4 legs, but it could also stand on 2 legs for a significant amount of time to reach high branches or raise its front limbs to threaten approaching predators. Its front limbs were quite large and, like its hind limbs, ended with impressive claws. The long neck of the Yinsaurus supported a small, elongated head. The most distinctive feature of this species is its more than 60 spoon-shaped teeth in its jaw. When its mouth is closed, these teeth fit closely together and sharpen themselves, making it easier to tear leaves. Notably, this feature is not common among primitive dinosaurs like Yanosaurus, but appeared later in giant post-Mesozoic species like Brachiosaurus. This is an example of convergent evolution, where unrelated species develop similar traits due to living in similar environments. If scientists only found the teeth of Eon Dinosaurus, they might confuse it with some post-Mesozoic herbivores. Yanosaurus moved from one grassland to another, not being too picky about its diet. Thanks to its special teeth, it could pick leaves from tall trees or even eat low ferns and grass. It's likely that Yanosaurus lived in herds to enhance their defense against predators. This phenomenon can still be seen in today's African savannas, where herds of wildebeest force lions to retreat when they resist. By the end of the early Jurassic, Earth began to trend cooler. Some areas were covered in ice, but the ice was not strong enough to affect mammals since most were covered in fur and lived in burrows. However, this cold had a negative impact on dinosaurs because they preferred warm climates. Not all species could survive this cold spell. For example, Coppet, a small carnivorous dinosaur, could not adapt and gradually disappeared. There were still many incredible reptile species in the early Jurassic that humans only know a tiny fraction of from the few fossil remnants left after millions of years.